This man had the reputation of the most bloodthirsty and remorseless pirate of the New World. Spanish sailors preferred fighting with him to the end, because they knew, if you are captured by him, there will be no mercy. Let me introduce you Francois Olonnais, French filibuster who terrorized the whole Spanish Main in the middle of the 17th century. The future pirate was born in France, in a place called the Sable d'Olonne, around 1630. Before Olonnais gained the fame of one of the most legendary pirates of the Caribbean, he was known under the name Jean de Vitno. Nobody knows for sure how he reached the Caribbean islands. According to one version, he joined the West India Company as a soldier. According to another one, he was lured there by recruiters who were running around Europe in the 17th century in search of gullible teenagers, enticing them with promises of fabulous riches of the New World. But the reality was so far from the sweet stories of recruiters. At the age of 15, Jean found himself on the sugar-cane plantations in Martinique, and soon after that he was sent to Hispaniola, where he worked as a slave for a long 9 years. These years couldn't pass without a trace for Jean, and hatred for the Spanish who treated him terribly, even more rooted in his heart. After serving his term on the plantations, he headed to the hunters of Hispaniola and lived among them for quite a long time. And that's where he took more sounding nickname, Francois L'Olonnais. L'Olonnais derives from the name of the place where he was born. Then Francois traveled to Tortuga, that was the secret capital of pirates at that time. He took up sea robbery there, and he became famous for his extreme cruelty in the battle. There was a bloody war between Spain and France in that time, and the French fully supported the pirates attacking the Spanish. The governor of Tortuga de la Place was impressed by L'Olonnais' courage and cunning. He gave him a ship, rightly believing that Francois would be a good commander and make profit. And so it happened. It seemed the pirate was lucky at a lot of things. He easily won victories at sea and got rich loot. Both his enemies and his own team were afraid of him. Everyone knew L'Olonnais was not a man to trifle with. He will make no bonds and on occasion send anyone to feed the fish. One day off the coast of Campeche he was caught in a violent storm and had to go ashore together with his team. However, they were noticed by the Spanish. Pirates had no choice but to take the fight, but filibusters were outnumbered. In that battle all the sea robbers died, all except Francois L'Olonnais. The pirate knew under no circumstances must he surrender and went to the trick. He smeared his face and body with blood and crawled under the lying bodies not to let the Spanish understand he was still alive. While citizens were celebrating their victory and praying that God had rescued them from a terrible scoundrel, L'Olonnais managed to incite several slaves to escape and by some miracle stole a fishing boat. So the pirate got to Tortuga safely together with the runaway slaves, and there his return made a splash. None of the coastal brotherhood didn't even think L'Olonnais was able to survive at the walls of Campeche. He definitely gained the fame of a lucky commander. Is there really need to say people who wanted to sail under French filibuster's command were more than enough? Francois recruited a team of like-minded people, notorious villains like him, and went to Cuba, to a small town La Villa de los Cayos. There was an active trade with Havana in the 17th century there. People sold sugar, tobacco, and cattle hides. Olonnais decided to size some boats, but pirates were noticed by local fishermen, and they were quick to report of pirates' arrival to the governor of Havana. There was no question of trading now. The locals feared Francois Olonnais like the devil. Then the governor of Havana sent a 10-gun ship in order to kill all the robbers, all but their commander. Obviously, the Spanish had a special excruciating execution for Olonnais, but it was not there. They didn't manage to take the pirate by surprise. The French swiftly attacked the Spanish ship as soon as it showed in the waters of Cuba. The Spanish didn't have any time to recover, as their ship was already captured. They all hid in the hole, driven by fear and surprise. The only way out of there was through the hatch. And here Francois fully demonstrated his sadistic inclinations. Standing by the hatch, the filibuster ordered the Spanish to go on deck one at a time. As soon as another poor man left the hold, L'Olonnais immediately beheaded him. The commander left only one person alive, so that he could deliver a letter to the governor. I will continue killing all the Spanish I only meet on my way, and one day I will get you. They say when the governor read the letter, he was so mad that nearly had a heart attack. The raid on Maracaibo, the city belonging to the Spanish Empire located on the territory of today's Venezuela, became the peak of a career as a pirate for Francois L'Olonnais. In the 17th century, there were around 4,000 citizens there, among them 800 soldiers. People traded cattle, cattle hides, and lard. They also took part in breeding domestic animals. The city was on the shore of the same name lake, which is connected to the sea by a narrow strait. Two islands were located between this strait. The Spanish built the fort on the one of them, designed to protect the city from possible captures. Pirates didn't take a risk to sail through the strait directly because it was very narrow and fire-swept, and the Spanish were ready to the arrival of filibusters from the sea. Instead of this, they landed on the island and attacked the Spanish fort from land. After 3 hours of fierce fighting, the fort fell, and the way to the city was free. The news about L'Olonnais and his gang moving towards Maracaibo quickly spread among the locals. When pirates entered the city, it had already been empty. People left after taking everything they could carry with them. Olonnais sent a squad to catch local citizens in the rainforest and force them to tell where they hid their wealth under torture. It didn't really matter who was in front of French, woman, child, or even feeble old man. Olonnais tortured everyone indiscriminately, and those who refused to talk he cut into pieces. After devastating Maracaibo, the filibuster aimed at another Spanish city located not so far from here, Gibraltar. Drink with blood and impunity, L'Olonnais was craving for getting more and more riches. But the rumors about pirates' outrage had already reached the governor of Gibraltar. Citizens and soldiers were preparing to oppose the impending threat together. 800 people stood up to defend the city. The governor also told to set a battery of 22 guns for protection. Gibraltar was surrounded by impassable swamps, and people were also told to block the only safe passage to the city, and instead of it, make a own path leading right to the marsh. Thinking that Gibraltar will become an easy target, L'Olonnais took only 380 people. Citizens met pirates with gunshots. The city resistance was so big that pirates had to retreat, but suddenly the Spanish got reckless. Inspired by their success, they left fortifications and chased pirates to finish them off. But L'Olonnais didn't get lost and ordered his people to attack. Pirates rushed into fight with the enemy fiercely. As a result, that day, the Spanish lost more than 500 people and filibusters only about 70. Nobody dared to bother survivors to loot the city. All the valuables were taken. Besides, pirates demanded from citizens a ransom of 10,000 piastres, otherwise they threatened to burn the city to ashes. After getting money, L'Olonnais came back to Maracaibo, where demanded another ransom of already 30,000 piastres. After getting it, pirates returned to Tortuga with rich loot. The great success in Maracaibo and Gibraltar finally went to L'Olonnais' head, and in 1667 he ventured on even more audacious crime, the robbery of Nicaragua. For this he gathered 6 ships and about 700 people. However, from the very beginning everything went wrong. Pirates headed to the Cape Gracias a Dios, but shortly after that they were becalmed. The current in those waters was strong, and they were drifted towards the Gulf of Honduras. Filibusters did everything possible to get out of calm, but it was all in vain. And what is worse, they were running out of supplies quickly. Pirates were desperate to get provision, and L'Olonnais with his gang decided to plunder coastal territories. Their victims became Indians living on the shore. Pirates ravaged them clean. Then they captured the Spanish vessel in Puerto Cavallo and devastated it as well. Olonnais was eager to go to the Spanish city San Pedro. He forced captives to show the way, mocking and torturing them. One day he opened up a man's chest and took his heart out only for not being able to show the safe way to the city. The Spanish were trying to hinder filibusters moving, but eventually San Pedro was seized. However, most of the citizens managed to hide their property and escape. Olonnais was disappointed at poor loot and ordered to burn the city. For the next 3 months, pirates managed to capture only a Spanish ship, but even here there was nothing valuable. There was only paper and iron on board. Discontent among filibusters was so big that the part of a team just decided to leave Olonnais and travel to Tortuga. But there were those who stayed loyal to their commander. Together they were in the Gulf of Honduras for some time in a vain attempt to profit at the expense of others. The commander and his team were going through a tough time. They ran out of food and started starving. Pirates were sailing not so far from the shore, killing all the animals on the way to feed themselves somehow. But it seemed that luck completely turned away from them. Olonnais' ship hit a reef not so far from the island of Las Perlas. The team went ashore. They had to disassemble the ship to build another one, but a smaller size. It took around a year to do this. After building a vessel, pirates decided that some of them would stay on the island and others would go to the waters of Nicaragua, capture a canoe, and then take the rest. Olonnais with his people headed to the mouth of the San Juan River to loot locals once again. But his plans couldn't be realized. His squad was struck down by the Spanish from the Fort San Carlos de Austria together with friendly tribes of Indians. The greater part of filibusters was killed and Olonnais himself had to flee. But the commander couldn't accept that he would have to come back to his people without a ship. He made a decision to go to Cartagena and try to capture a ship there. But near the Gulf of Darien, pirates fell into the hands of natives, cannibals living there. They tore Olonnais into pieces, cooked and ate him. So the most fearsome person in the Caribbean ended his life. Only few lucky ones managed to escape and get to Tortuga to tell others the way their commander died. And what do you think about Francois Olonnais? Leave your comments down below, and that's all for today.